Okay, everybody, we're going to start off by warming up the hips here. So you'll feel it in the hips and the arms by sitting in simple cross legs. And of course, an announcement that everything back to normal next week. So for those of you who come to the YMCA for classes, I will see you next Friday morning. I'll have to check the time. I think it's 11. So if you sit on your support, whatever support you need, 1 block, 2 blocks, a bolster, whatever you need, and then taking the flesh out to the side so that you can concentrate on the buttock bones when you feel the buttock bones, and then towards the front of the block, not the back, and then sit up. Just to start the class, take the back of the hands to the top of the thigh, so the little finger is just in the crease at the top of the thigh, the groins, and winging the elbows back. Take the front of the face to the back of the skull. Allow the eyes to close so it's more like the eyelashes joining together. To take a few breaths to start the class. Stretching from the back armpit down towards the back elbow, and then lifting up out of the buttock bones, lengthening to the crown of the head. To start the class, just take 5 complete in-breaths, 5 complete out-breaths. Notice on the in-breath, you have a rising action in the sternum. And on the out-breath, relax the shoulders down the back. Feel length come to the sides of the trunk, the sides of the waist, the sides of the ribs. And always rolling the shoulders away from the ears on the out-breath. Front of the face to the back of the skull, so the chin is in a neutral position. Now allow the eyes to open, and then squeezing the outer hips here in towards the center, and keep those hips working so the hips are gripping and the femur bone is being absorbed into the hips. It's not spreading out. Femur bone absorbed into the hips. Now with the flat of the hands onto the thighs, roll the shoulders back, head back. And then interlock the fingers, stretching into the heel of the hands. Look at the arms, how straight they are, but also think about the shoulder blades, that you're not rounding the shoulder blades. Tuck the shoulder blades into the back and lift the arms. Make each breath count, so as you breathe in, stretch up. And as you breathe out, make sure you're not gathering the shoulders up, but the shoulders are rolling down the back, shoulder blades descending. And there's a space between the earlobe and the shoulders. So breathe in, 5 complete in-breaths, 5 complete out-breaths. Breathe in, push up. Breathe out, relax the shoulders. As you breathe in, lengthen the sides of the waist. As you breathe out, shoulders. Breathe in, think about your armpits. Lengthen the armpits. Breathe out. Breathe in, wrists are higher. Breathe out. Breathe in, push into the heel of the hands. Breathe out, come down. And turn the palms towards you and change the interlock. Whatever little fingers now on the bottom. Take the other little finger on the bottom, then go right up to the webbing so that the fingers are stretching, they're not bunched up. It's the wrists that are extending, you're not pushing into the knuckles. Then stretch the arms out, but this time you're going to take the knuckles on top of the head. Tuck the shoulder blades in, take the knuckles onto the head. Out of your peripheral vision, you might see the elbows. I want you to slide the hands back, just to wherever feels achievable, and then take the elbows back. Now as you do that, feel those upper arm muscles working. Keep them working as you straighten the arms and keep the arms a little bit further back this time. 5 complete in breaths, 5 complete out breaths. Breathe in. Waist gets longer. Breathe in. Trunk lifts out of pelvis. Ribs lift out of pelvis. Breathe in. Can you lift the armpits higher? And then the upper arms higher. Shoulder blades in, ribs wide, and then pushing into the wrists. Come down out of the posture. And then if you have a break, if you don't have a break, it's okay. You'll take a break and you'll bring it up to the shin. You can always take it further away if you need to. Taking the thumbs into the crease of the top of the thigh. Get that deep connection now. Push down, lift the ribs out of the pelvis, open up the upper chest and come forward. So being aware that the shoulder blades will want to round, you've ducked them into the back and taken the hands down onto the mat. You can brace your upper arms against your knees, bring the ribs forward, walk the hands forward and take the head down. So the head comes down, forehead comes down onto the block. But for some of you, you'll be able to go lower. But give yourself a few seconds to warm up into the posture, first posture, and then see if you can tip the block down one level, and not taking the head down, but stretching the ribs forward, crawling the hands forward to take the head down. And if you want to go lower. Pushing the hips back. It's the same connection with the groins now. They want to tip forward, so draw the kneecaps back to the hips, draw the thigh bones, plug them into the hips, and keep the connection of the buttock bones down, the ribs forward. And then lifting the head and walking back. So we'll change the cross of the legs and we'll do a twist. We're hoping to do some standing twists. So whatever leg's behind now, you just take it in front. Remember, you're not crossing the ankles, but you're crossing the mid-shin. And taking the feet out under the knees. And then once more, re-establishing the lift. And bringing the block in so it's ready for you, high, and then rolling the shoulders away from the ears. Now we're going to do a twist, and you're going to take your left arm to your right knee, and to stop you pulling the knee up like that, if you just turn the hands, the back of the hands onto the knee, and you'll feel this side of the chest gets a bit cold, so we'll concentrate on that when we're in the posture. If you take the hand behind you, you can find a wall, or you can find the far end of the block. Now breathe in and draw the abdomen back into the space and then turn the navel towards the right hip. So the whole of the abdominal skin is turning to the right hip. And then breathe in, lift the ribs and turn the ribs. And thinking about the left side of the chest now, don't let it get caught in the arm. Breathe in, fill the upper chest, turn the upper chest. And if you can, look along the back shoulder. If there's any trouble with the neck, just keep the gaze of the eyes forward. But if you can, just think about turning the neck as if it was on 4 pillars, and you're turning and keeping everything even, tucking the shoulder blades in, grabbing the far corner of the block, or grabbing a bit of your leggings to help with the twist. Breathe in and twist a bit more. Breathe in to prepare, to lengthen. Breathe out to twist and turn. Shoulder blades forward to support the chest. And then coming back to face forward and turning in the other direction. So now the right hand, the back of the right hand onto the knee, and you'll see the chest gets caught on that arm, but we're going to free it in the posture. And take the other hand behind, and if you can't grab the far corner of the block, just grab a bit of the leggings or have your hand onto the wall, as we've been doing. Right, breathe in, now draw the abdomen back and turn the navel towards the left hip. So you're turning in the lumbar. Breathe in. Lift the ribs out of the pelvis, turn the ribs. You're using the right arm to push on, the left arm to pull yourself back. Breathe in, now you're going to free this side of the chest. Breathe out and turn. And then if you can, keeping both the back and the front of the neck level, you can turn and look along the back shoulder. Don't drop, don't bring any tension to the neck. Use each breath. Breathe in and turn. Twisting and turning on each exhalation. Come back to face forward, and the length, now that you will recreate that length. Find Tadasana trunk and hinging forward from the hips. Don't shrink the front of the spine. Lead with the chin, lead with the chest. You can try and get your chin this time onto the block. So pull the chin out and get the chin onto the block. Stretching the arms forward. Give yourself time, about 10 seconds. And then see if you can take the block forward with the head onto the block. Connect the hips back, stretch the ribs forward, stretch the arms forward, and then take the block down if you want more of a challenge, but don't dip the head to get to the block. Stretch the ribs forward, walk the hands forward, and take the head down. Push the hips back. Keep the arms working strongly. You can come onto the fingertips and push the hips back. Ground the hips down. Don't let them tip and float forward. And then lift the head and come out of the posture. So you'll need 2 bricks, and it's the last, this is the last recorded class, so if you haven't got your equipment now, there'll be equipment here for you when you come back. But it's always better to have your own equipment. So if you haven't got bricks, you can have books, you can have DVDs, whatever you use. It's to take your hands onto to open up your armpits. So you can use the wall. You can take your ball pads into the wall, and it gives you something to lengthen back. So it's like Tadasana on your front. You have your feet together and really be pressing the heels back, not letting the knees drop and the heels come to you. Heels back, back of the knees open, and then you take your hands onto the blocks. Now if you wanted a support for the head, take a support for the head. You could just lie like this. I'm going to shuffle myself back so I have more push. You could start off with the knees on the floor, then lift the knees and push. Take the hands forward. The heel of the hands are on the edge of the block, and what you're doing is pushing the heels back, so you're firming the heels into the wall, but stretching the arms forward. So if you're on a nice shiny floor, it comes a bit easier. Heels back, back of the knees lift up to the ceiling. Keep pushing the arms forward, but also taking the armpits down to the floor. So if you turn your head, you'll see this massive gap, and you're going to just feel as if somebody's above you, applying a little bit of weight. Outer arms down to the floor, outer armpits down to the floor, armpits down to the floor. And then you could breathe in on and out breath. Heels are dense, arms are long. Keep those armpits long and take it into dog stretch. Back of the knees hit up to the ceiling. Arms strong, don't let the elbows drop. Lift the elbows, but expose the armpits. Feel the length in the armpits and bringing that now into dog stretch. So you'll walk your hands back, take yourself a little way off the wall because you want your heels to be on the wall, but you're not the whole sole of the feet. So you can adjust when you get into it if you're not at the right distance, but when you're ready, just lift up and push back into dog stretch. So I want my heels up the wall, the hands spreading, and if the hands were slipping, you take your hands to the side of the mat. It's quite nice to do that anyway. And I want to bend the knees so I can lengthen the armpits, sink the shoulder blades, tip the buttock bones up to the ceiling, and push the heels into the wall as you lift the toes off the mat. Be on the ball pad. Push the heel into the wall. See, by lifting the toes, if you can be on the back of the ball pad. Then 5 breaths. And on the in-breath, you're going to tip the buttock bones up to the ceiling. And on the out-breath, you're going to expose your chest to your legs, to your thighs. Take the armpits to the ankles. Work the toes off the floor, be on the ball pad. And now breathe in, lift up the buttock bones, breathe out, armpits to ankles, breathe in, and out, breathe in, legs working, and out. Dense heels, light toes, long ribs, bend the knees, come down into pose of the child. And have a few breaths. Whether you've got wide knees, whether you've got your knees together. And if you've got anything wrong with your knees, then you just lie on your back and pull your knees in. Those hamstrings long and the inner thighs and the hip work. We're going to do the leg stretches, and you're going to do it with just a plain belt. Okay? When you take your legs out to the side, have your leg at hip height, no higher than that, but really concentrate on absorbing the hip bones. So the top of the leg, femur bone, and then there's a ball and socket. Just think about those two balls coming closer together. You're absorbing the femur bone into the hip. Okay, so always like to use the wall. You can do it in the middle of the floor. And if you do the press and slide, then you get a bit of traction to your hips and also your shoulders. They roll down. It's really nice. So when you lie down, start with bent legs. And then have that belt across your abdomen so you don't have to fumble for it. But then as you straighten your legs, press, slide, and feel the shoulders move away from the ears. Feel the back of the hips become long. Take the arms to the side of the trunk. So that rolling of the shoulders is easy when you're on the floor. A bit harder when you're standing, but I'll be asking you the same thing. Lots of space between the earlobe and the shoulder. Right now, with your hips level now, can you bend up your leg, take the belt around the foot without disturbing your hips or your shoulders too much, and then straighten the leg. When you lift the leg, remember this side of the trunk shortens, the hip shrinks back into the waist. So could you lengthen the sides of the waist by taking the head of the femur away from you? So we're going to have a hamstring stretch. That might be enough for you. Dense heel into the wall, push into the right big toe, pull the shoulders down to the floor. But if you want more hamstring stretch, then pull the leg in towards you. You could do that by broadening the elbows, broadening the chest. And then see if you can get even more broad elbows, by pulling out a bit more. Hugging the thigh muscles onto the bone. Gripping the kneecaps, absorbing the femur bones into the hip sockets. One more if you have it in you. Breathe in, breathe out. Pull the leg. And then hold the posture with level hips, gripping thighs, kneecaps lifting, ribs broad, facial muscles relaxed. Dense left heel, push it into the wall. Outer right hip stretches away from the waist. Now gathering the belt, the two strands of the belt, in your left hand. If you take your hand as near the foot as you can, secure the grip and have a straight arm. Push into the big toe, make the left heel dense again, and then take the leg out to the side. So we're trying to keep this left hip from moving, keeping it on the floor. And we're all different, and if you get there and a break comes on the posture, but you feel you've got a bit more stretch, you can lift it a little higher, but keep those hips working. So that the femur bone is moving into the hip. The abdomen is in the center. You're not rolling into the posture. And the pushing of the foot into the wall anchors the left hip. Just be there in the posture. Feel the long stretch from the inner groin to the inner knee. Ribs in passive. Squeeze the hips. Push into the belt and come back. And then let go and take the heel to the wall. If you need to shuffle in, shoulders roll away from ears, back of the hips long. And as you bend in the left knee, make sure that you're not bunching the hip. As soon as the belt is on the hip, as soon as the leg is straight, then stretch the outer hip away. So if there was an arrow on the outer hip, it would be going towards the wall. Take one side of the belt in each hand, shoulders down to the floor. Hips are level, kneecaps gripping, thighs gripping, and pushing the right heel into the wall as if you were standing. Breathe in, breathe out, and bring the leg towards you, and don't stop until you feel that's a good stretch. I'll go with that. And the muscles get used to having a bit more stretch after about 10 or 15 seconds. So after a pause, you can breathe in, you can have a look at your big toe and bring it over towards you, but not dropping the thigh, gripping the thigh, hips, kneecaps, and lengthening the left outer hip away. And pushing that dense right heel into the wall, breathe in, last one. For those of you with long hamstrings, just bring a bit of hamstring stretch into it, and then hold. Elbows wide. Pulling the elbows out to the side, but the shoulders down to the floor. And watch for that right heel coming off the wall, off the skirting board. Make it dense. Push into the left big toe.
And then join the two strands of the belt and grab the belt as near the foot so you've got straight arm, straight leg. And then make sure the ribs are passive in the centre. Grip the hips, grip the kneecaps, grip the thighs and take the leg hip height. But really concentrating on what's happening in the right hip. Is it peeling off the floor? And what's happening in the abdominal skin? Is it rolling to the left? So breathe in, and on an out breath, push the heel into the wall, abdominal skin to the right hip. And then be in your posture. If you need to come a little bit higher to get the stretch, do so, but not massively higher. Good. Complete breath in, complete breath out. Abdominal skin moves back towards the right hip. The femur bones squeeze in. Thighs, front of the thighs gripping. Heels active. Navel in the center. And then come back. And if you let that foot be free, just take the heels to the wall for Supta Tadasana. Pushing into the heels, front of the legs to the back of the legs, back of the legs to the floor, roll the shoulders under, and one last time take the arms over, so the back of the hands come onto the floor, and you've got long armpits again. Think about the long armpits. So you haven't just raised the arms, you're pushing the heels into the wall, gripping the thighs, and on each out breath, stretch. So you can feel the arms moving. Breathe in. They're not just lying on the floor, they're stretching away. You can close the eyes. Heels dense. Armpits long. Back of the hands onto the floor. Let them slide a bit further away. And then bring the arms back. Bending the knees and preparing to do one last dog stretch with your fingers to the wall. So you had your heels at the wall, the heels will come down now, and you'll have your thumb and your forefinger into the skirting board, extending the fingers, turning the arms, so the arms roll from inner to outer. You don't have to think about that. Keep the chest broad, keep the hips high. So if you start off by coming onto your hands and knees and taking the thumb and the forefinger into the skirting board, spreading the fingers like starfish. So you're not pushing everything in, it's not uncomfortable. It's a natural spread of the fingers, but a connection with the thumb and the forefinger. Take the knees under the hips, tuck the shoulders under. Now all of the wrists on the floor, arms spinning from inner to outer so that the inner elbow is looking at the wall. Head hangs, lift the abdomen and then come up into dog stretch. Just have a look at the feet, bend the knees, lift the buttock bones up to the sky, groins up to the sky, kneecaps lifted, thighs lifted, straighten the legs. And then when you're ready, take your heels down, outer heel down first, inner heel down last. Get the connection of the thumb and the forefinger, stretch them forward but push the hips back. 5 complete breaths. Breathe in, extend the back of the legs. Breathe out, push the hips away. Breathe in, work those legs. And then push the hips away so the arms get lighter. Extend the sides of the trunk. Extend the sides of the waist. lift the buttock bones. And then can you walk your hands back to your feet? So walk, 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 walk. And coming onto the fingertips, lengthen the sides of the ribs. So the groins are going back, armpits forward, shoulder blades in, back of the neck long. And then if you could slide your hands back and grab your big toes. If you can't get the big toes, have a belt around the big toes. And pressing the big toe down like an anchor, pull the armpit forward, don't take it into the neck, so pull the shoulders away from the ears, shoulder blades tuck into the back, anchor that big toe down, push it into the fingers, so the palms are facing each other. Now spiral those arms from inner to outer, stretch the ribs forward, and then when you're ready, release down into Padangusthasana. Still pressing the toe down, that's your anchor. Now pull the elbows out to the side, the head down to the floor. As you breathe in, lift the back of the legs. As you breathe out, let the sides of the ribs front descend. 5 complete breaths. Then bring yourself out of the posture by leading with the chin, leading with the breastbone. You've still got your big toes. Stretch the breastbone out, swing the arms up to the side of the hips and come up out of the posture. Trikonasana. So if you've got a wall, take your foot to the wall. If you've got a settee, you can, if you have your foot against a door, a settee or anything, cupboard, it's going to make a difference. If it's really hard, you can take a foam pad like that, so you can really push into the foam pad without it hurting. So take what support you have or what support you need, and then have your foot, and it will be your left foot onto the block. So does this work? Shall I? Yeah, I'll mirror. So the left foot onto the block, and go forward with the right foot. Sorry, forgot to say. And have a brick behind you. Now, I'm going to suggest a tall brick to keep the bottom ribs long, but if you know that you need a lower brick, take a lower brick. So first of all, just concentrating on the back foot, and with that foam pad, look at the outer ankle and roll it towards that pad. So with the pad, it's a little bit spongy, a little bit more comfortable. So the arch is lifting, and the inner ankle is moving to the outer ankle. Not what it wants to do. The inner ankle wants to drop, and then this leg comes forward. So working from inner ankle to the outer ankle to the foam pad, turn the leading leg, and then start off with a high block. So if you think this was when you were on the floor, this would be the leg you would take out to the side. This was the leg your heel was pushing into the wall. So could you activate the back heel, lift the arch of the foot, take the inner ankle to the outer ankle moves much further to the block, and then turn away from the leading leg and stretch into the arms. We start off, both sides of the ribs are equal. You're going to keep that back, keep thinking from the groin, keep length on the bottom waist as you come into the posture, so you have a break to go to. Right, so breathe in, and as you go out, like that brick is there to support you. Activate the back heel, lengthen the bottom ribs, lengthen the bottom waist, take your hand onto the block and the top hand onto the hip. Activate the back heel, lift, lengthen the back of the hips now towards the back heel, lengthen the bottom waist, lift the top arm, and
And if you want to go lower, go lower. So just like wait a few seconds before you do anything with that bottom brick. But before you turn the brick, activate the back heel, take the brick lower, and as you take the brick lower, if you're curling in the ribs, bring their height back into the posture. Now, can you squeeze your hips forward, take your head back, open your chest, lengthen the back of the hips towards the heel, lift the thigh muscles up into the hips, and turn and twist to the ceiling. Breathe in, and turn the top of the chest. Keep rolling the top of the chest. Breathe in, lengthen the spine. Breathe out, turn the top of the chest. Activate the back heel. Breathe in. Breathe out, open the chest, turn the chest. Breathe in. Breathe out and turn. Now to come out of it, drop that hip. And if you want to, you can bring the block up, probably don't need to, and come up out of the posture, reaching for the wall, and then turning to do the other side. Right. So shuffling your feet in, turning round, and then taking your outer edge of your back foot onto the foam pad, obesity, and then have a look at how the arch wants to drop and the knee wants to turn. Having the block there so you can take it to the back of the calf muscle. First of all, get your Tadasana distance 3.5 to 4 foot. Have a look at the back foot, lift the arch of the foot, and roll that ankle, that outer ankle, towards the foam pad. Turn the front foot, take the block down behind the calf muscle, to the side of the calf muscle. Widen if you want to. Now you turn your ribs back towards the wall. You can take your hand to the wall, and the foam pad makes it possible to get the stretch in the back arm. Rotate the front thigh, squeeze the outer leading hip forward, stretch into the arm, go back, activate the back heel, lift, pull up the thigh muscles, and then extend out. Keep length in the bottom waist, knowing that the block is there so you don't have to go down to the floor. You lengthen out. When you take your hand down, the block is there. Top hand onto the hips. Remind the buttocks to go towards the back heel. Turn the top of the chest. Activate that back heel again. Lift the thigh muscles. Lift the top arm. Head back. Open the chest. Squeeze the hips forward. Push down to the left big toe. Shoulders away from ears. For those of you who want to. Without losing the length, can you take the block down and keep the length at the bottom waist. Use 5 breaths to breathe in, prepare, breathe out, turn the top of the chest. Absorbing the femur bones into the hip sockets. Lengthening the spine. Hold that posture. Chest open, chest turning. Shoulder blades tuck into the back. Now push the heel into the wall and then come up out of the posture. Turn the feet forward and shuffle the feet in towards each other. Take your hips to the wall. Take your feet to the side of the mat so that the outer edges of the feet are on the side of the mat. And then as you hinge forward from the hips, it's the same thing. Pull up on the thigh muscle, lengthen the sides of the waist and come into a relaxed Uttanasana. Relaxing down. Still, not dropping the shoulders, lifting the shoulders up and letting the head hang. And then coming up out of the posture. Right, we're going to just open up the armpits, and for some people you'll do Supta Baddha Konasana, and for some people you'll do headstand next to a wall or wherever you know
just want to bring those arms back, open armpits. So you're going to take your arms out in front of you, and then roll the shoulders away from the ears. Then turn the palms to the ceiling, and look at the thumb wants to be higher than the little finger. So get the roll of the arms right from the top. And then hinging back, so your elbows are shoulder height, hinge back and touch the shoulders. And then lift the arms, lift the elbows. And if you can go underneath your neckline to your skin, you can crawl your hands down your back. Now what you're trying to do is get ready for headstand, where the upper arms are really working, armpits forward. And if you can get your hands onto your shoulder blades, push them into the back. Take the armpits forward. Thighs back. Working your legs if you are upside down, Tadasana legs, gripping the thighs, kneecaps, abdomen back of the hips long. And elbows reach up to the ceiling, and armpits forward. And then come out of the posture, take the arms down. Feel how you've worked your shoulders. Now for people who are used to doing headstand, a reminder, that you have to have a full support on the back of the head. Now some people have been doing it for years. If you're not used to it, wait until next week till we're back at class. But you have to interlock your fingers and a little gap between the wrists. Those wrists go on the back of your head and they form a really secure support. If you don't have that, and if you've just got your hands at the back of the head, the hands tend to roll and you don't get the support. So if you know what you're doing, take your strong interlock, whatever little finger's on the bottom, take it in, so you're forming a really level wrists. Do you know one wrist isn't tipping up? And then, say it is my right little finger I'm taking in, so my left thumb on top of my right thumbnail. And I pull that in. You're supposed to get a stick in between your wrists, broom handle in between the wrists, elbows down, and I've been saying, this in other classes, the elbows become light, then all the weight goes into the elbows, so it's like a karate. If you did a karate chop, you'd really use your wrist, and you have to use your wrist down into the mat to get the support. So if you want to go to the wall now, I'll be with you in a second, Supta Baddha Konasanas, and take your knuckles to the wall and bring the little finger on the bottom, bring it in, and take one thumb on top of the other, bringing the elbows in so the elbows are under the shoulders. And then when you take the top of the head down, slide it so the back of the head is supported by that strong wrist action. And you've got a karate chop wrist. Push the wrist down, and then tucking the toes under, just take yourself into the wall, and then if you want to, kick up into the posture. Now before you do that, lift the shoulders, take the armpits forward, and then when you're ready, just lift one leg and let the other leg follow. And then karate chop arms, armpits forward, don't lean the shoulders back into the wall. And see if you can hold while other people come onto the floor with the belt. Take the belt round the front of the ankles. Give yourself enough room to lie back, holding on to the belt. As you lie back, you can bend the knees and you can take the belt onto the front of the ankles. Join the feet together. Those hands can go where the hip joints are, so they can give you a bit of support. Roll the shoulders under and push the heels together. Now you can keep your hands out, you can take your hands out to the side, but don't let the feet slide away. Keep the heels tucked up
towards the buttock bones. Headstand. People in headstand, remember the first posture when you were lying on, one of the first postures when you were lying on the floor and you had your hands onto bricks and you were taking the armpits down to the floor. Now you take the armpits forward. Don't lean the shoulder blades back into the wall, tuck them into the body. You're doing Tadasana, upside down. Keep the sides of the waist long. The back of the hips, the buttocks now go up towards the back of the knees. Tailbone up towards the ceiling. Heels extend up towards the ceiling. Gripping the thighs together, inner thighs back. And really working the legs. Gripping the kneecaps. Gripping the thigh. Quietly in both postures, you can do another 30 seconds. Allow the eyes to close. People who are in Supta Baddha Konasana on the floor, and go to the breath. Open armpits, shoulder blades tucked into the back for the headstanders, and working the legs, gripping the kneecaps, absorbing the femur bones into the hip sockets, compact hips. And when you're ready, coming down, one leg at the wall, taking the other leg down, and just letting the second leg follow the first leg. You've been upside down, you just need to sit up very slowly and perhaps open up the shoulders by interlocking the arms and stretching them back. People on the floor, coming out of Supta Baddha Konasana now, and getting ready to do a couple of more postures. So hopefully that's a little bit of restorative yoga for some of you. And you're going to do Virabhadrasana 2 with a brick at the wall. Now, because we were off last week, I can't remember whether I did this with you, but no harm repeating things. For people who want less of a challenge, you'll take a narrow brick like that, long and narrow. It gives you a little bit more room. For people who want more of a challenge, you'll take a broad brick like that, like a house brick. I've said it so many times, I feel as if we've already done it, but we're just doing it once. And to get the action of the spine being in the centre, and the twist that's in the posture. So when you're doing it at the wall like this, it just gives you a lot of feedback. So because if you want less of a challenge, you will take that brick underneath the kneecap, on the shin, long and narrow. If you want more of a challenge, like a house brick, you'll take it under the knee with your toes up the wall. So if anybody's got one of those old-fashioned solid wood bricks, take a blanket onto your foot just in case it slips. It doesn't usually slip, but I've never seen it slip, but you never know. So I'm not mirroring now because I'm into the posture. That's where I'm at, if everybody could join me. And if you don't want to do that, then just take your foam pads to the wall, like that. And that's kind of an ideal distance for you, okay? So we've got a challenge, less of a challenge, and a little, if you want to be kind to yourself, just that one pad. So I'm going for toes up the wall, because it just gets me a bit nearer the wall, making sure the front foot is straight, and then going back with that back foot. Now, because it's, it does feel very different from when you're doing it in the middle of the room, I want you to keep the outer edge of the back foot down, firmly down, down, and roll on to the outer edge of the back foot. You might not get as far as you normally do, but you don't want that arch to collapse. Now, if you take your hand onto the wall and then push, you should be in the centre and not leaning into the posture. So lengthen the back of the hips down and then go a bit further if you can. I'm on a bit of a slippy mat, so I think that's about it for me today. And then turn the inner elbow up to the ceiling and keeping this back hand onto the hip, lengthening the tailbone in, can you turn the ribs away from the wall? So breathe in,
Breathe out and turn. 2 more. Breathe in and turn the ribs away from the wall. Breathe in and turn. Now can you lift the back arm, look along the front arm, straighten the arm and be in the posture. Squeeze the hips towards each other. Keep the turn in the posture. Keep turning the ribs away from the wall. Every out breath. And then come out of the posture. Right. One more leg. So you've decided on the support, match it, whatever you've decided on. And have the toes up the wall, so you're a little bit closer to the wall. And the block broadways under the knee. And then go back. So this posture you normally dip down into. But we're concentrating on the twist that you have in the posture, spine in the centre. So go back a bit, and back a bit. See how far. I'm getting on a slippy bit of the mat, so I've got to stop. And then lengthen the back of the hips down. Now, if you take the heel of the hand to the wall, back hand onto the hip, so you want this thigh to turn out and the arch to lift, and then maybe you can go back a bit more. Once you get the turning of that back leg, push hard with the heel of the hand into the wall, other hand onto the hip, breathe in, breathe out, and turn the ribs away from the wall. Relax the shoulders. Breathe in, and turn the ribs away from the wall. Breathe in, and turn the ribs away from the wall. See if you can straighten the back arm, look to the front arm, and keep the twist. Squeeze the hips towards each other. Roll the shoulders away from the ears. And then come out of the posture. And just placing the block to the side. We're going to have long armpits again, and you're going to do kind of a version of Parsvottanasana, but to open the shoulders. So you take your foot to the wall, and if you can get right up the wall, I can't, do so. But as long as you have it up the wall at an angle. So I am not mirroring now, take your right foot to the wall. I'll show you what you're going to do, first of all. So you can find this while you're finding the surface. Fingertips onto the wall, turn the hips to the wall, tuck the shoulder blades in, walk the hands up the wall. Now I've got piked armpits here, so you have to really work that foot into the wall, turn the hips, shoulder blades in, walk the hands up, and take the head to the wall. Lovely, opening up of the armpits. Right, so if everybody takes their foot to the wall and goes back with the left foot, and the left foot is well turned in. And mirror, I've got to mirror, right. Right, you start off with your hands hip height, and then could you take your left hip to the right hip, bring it round, left hip to right hip. One more time, left hip to right hip. So the skin on the outer thigh goes forward. Now we're going to get our long armpits now by walking up the wall, but pushing the ball pad into the wall, drawing the thigh muscle up, so actively drawing the femur bone up into the hip, and also turning the right hip to the left hip. You can feel the shoulder blades not active, they're just poking out. So walk the hands up the wall, long armpits, and take the head to the wall. Now don't forget those hips. Keep turning them to the wall. Open the chest to the wall. Press the hands into the wall. Grip the thigh muscles up into the hips. And then come out of it, just push your hands into the wall, and if you join your heels together, then you're in the right position. Now the left ball, pad up the wall, taking the heel. If you can get your heel into the wall, then do so. The skirting board won't let me go any higher. So the hands are shoulder height. Turn the hips, so this time you take your right hip to your left hip. So can you bring your right hip to your left hip? 3 attempts. Right hip to left hip. Right hip to left hip. Shoulders away from the ears. Now to bring length to the armpits. Take the arms as high as you can and take the armpits to the wall. The head might still be a long way away, but now you can crawl your hands up the wall, spreading the fingers and taking the head to the wall and opening up the armpits, drawing the abdomen back, armpits long. And then coming out of the posture, just pushing your hands into the wall, coming out of the posture, and doing that same posture now with your heels at the wall. Last standing posture. So you have to have your heels connected into the wall, and we're going to walk forward. So people who've got, struggle with their hamstrings or hips, then you can have blocks like that. So you can have your hands onto the blocks and walk the blocks forward to get the full extension on the same extension you had at the wall. So you start off with your feet 10 to 2, and then go forward, forward with the right leg. And then in the same way that we did at the wall, tucking the tailbone in, can you take your left hip to your right hip? And again. Left hip to right hip. And again. Left hip to right hip. And then tucking the shoulder blades in, hinge forward from the hips, and instead of walking up the wall, we're walking to the top of the mat. So keeping the length as you come down, hands onto blocks, or hands onto the floor, or hands onto lower blocks, whatever suits you, and the fingertips onto the floor. 3 turns of the hips again. Breathe in. Can you take your left hip to your right hip? Left hip to right hip. Left hip to right hip. Now, firm the heels, bring the breastbone forward, walk the hands forward, and let the head, as it did at the wall, come down as if it was going to the wall, and walk the hands forward. Push the heel into the wall. Lift the right thigh muscle up, grip it up into the hips. Strong legs, hips turning. Keep there, keep on your bricks, but for those of you who can, walk your hands back towards the skirting board, towards the back foot, beyond the fingertips. Breastbone out, and then take the head down onto the shin. Let the flat of the hands onto the floor, elbows back, hips still turning. So the right hip turns to the left hip. But that right hip squeezes into the body. Absorb the femur bone. Absorb that right femur bone, leading hip into the body. Don't let it jut out. And then come out of the posture, and you can walk the foot forward. So the left foot forward and the right foot back. Heel in line with heel, heel in line with instep, and then come up. So now you're in the same distance with your hands on your hips. Shoulder blades into the back,
Shoulder bones back, breastbone lifts, and then you're going to take your right hip to your left hip. So it comes round. Right, breathe in, and right hip to left hip, and then right hip again, a bit more to the left hip, right hip to left hip, hinge forward from the hips, and keeping the back heel dense, pushing into the skirting board, grip the front thigh up, squeeze the femur bones into the body, breastbone forward, hands onto blocks, lower blocks, or the floor. And then 3 more turns of the hips. Breathe in, can you bring the outer right thigh forward and draw the left hip back. Go back to the original instruction. Breathe in, take your right hip to your left hip. Bring it round. Right hip to left hip. Now squeeze the shoulder blades in, walk the hands forward. So when you were walking your hands up the wall, you stopped. And then from somewhere you got a little bit more stretch. Can you stretch forward a bit more? Lengthen the armpits, push the hips back to the wall, take the head down. Draw that front thigh up. So the left thigh bone actively moves up into the hip. For those of you who want to, take your hands back and lay your head down. Shin down onto the shin, forehead onto the shin. Out of the posture and get ready for a relaxed forward bend. So if you come up onto on a folded blanket or one foam pad, and then seeing if you can, you've had a lot of hamstring stretches. So if you take your heels to the side of the mat, if you've got, still working with your hamstrings, if you feel want a bit more of a challenge, hip width apart. And then taking the block high, so the break is high and narrow, or your book, so that you can take your chin onto the block if you can. Then keeping the chin super glued to the block, you'll slide the block forward just to get extra length on the front of your body. And then you'll keep the chin where it is, but take the block onto the head. Slide that forward, so we're continually trying to get more length. And then you can take the block down if you wish to. Also, if anybody's got any knee problems, you can take the support under the knees, like that. Just, you can roll the blanket up, and it shouldn't, it won't harm where the brick is. That's nice because you can hit your knees down into something. So, pull the buttock flesh out to the side, have a couple of goals, and as we did at the beginning of the class, feel as if you're rising up out of the buttock bones. Open the chest, shoulders move away from ears, and you're going to hinge forward from the hips. So the length that you've got from the pubic bone to the ribs, this area, this abdominal area, you're going to keep. So you can walk your hands forward, keep lifting the ribs forward and not letting the ribs shrink back to the thighs. Ribs move away from thighs, and walk the hands forward. Hitting the back of the knees down, whether you've got a blanket or not, still hitting the back of the knees equally down into the mat, and then drawing the block forward if it's not in the right place, but you can hold onto your feet, bring your chin out and take your chin onto the block. You can hold your heels, big toes away. You can have a belt around the feet. If you're nowhere near the block, that's okay. Just work with the belt. Lifting the breastbone, come as far as you can. Now you've had a chance. Can you keep your chin super glued to the block? Lift the block. How far with your chin on the block can you bring it out and put it down?
Keep the chin where it is. Take the block, just slide it forward so that the head can come down, the forehead comes down, but you've kept the length. If you feel the chin sliding back to the ribs, correct. Back of the legs working down into the mat, elbows high if you're holding the feet, elbows in line with the shoulders. And then for those of you who can, keep the head where it is so it's nice, it's extended forward, tip the block down, have a look at the block and take the head down. And then just hold the posture. Pressing the area between the eyebrows into the block, creating a nice soothing feeling by doing so. Staying there, lengthening forward. Out of the posture and forward bends give you calm energy, so you keep that calmness and come into your own relaxation, whatever you've decided you like to do. As a suggestion, I'm going to form a T shape with my two foam pads. So once for the head and once for the upper back, but a gap of about 1 inch, 2 inches in between, just so that the back of the neck can fall into the gap. If you have got a blanket, then rolling it up into like a nice bolster for the back of your knees is good for people with bad backs and knees, but it's just nice, it lengthens the lower back. Remember, if you've got a belt or any eye bags, you have that ready to take across your eyes. And maybe if you have a couple of bricks, if you've got them, to the side of you. So as you go back, you're going to take your head onto the block, adjust the blanket so that the back of the knees are supported, lengthen the back of the neck so the chin is in a neutral position and also the front of the throat is soft. It's not straining, the neck's not tipping back. You're supporting your head on the most prominent bit at the back of the head, but also in the center, so you can get your head and roll it around until you feel you're in center and the sides of the neck are soft, they're relaxed, and the shoulders are rolling under. Now, for some people, this is nice. I always go for nice things, and that's just taking the blocks under your arms, but if you prefer to have your arms on the floor, that's fine. And for some people, like holding the blocks in their hands, to pin the hands down, but also to roll the thumb side, and that's what I like, holding a block and just letting the thumb roll down to the floor. So you get an extra roll on the top of the shoulders. Breathing in and out through the mouth, but softening the lips. So if you could just release your lower jaw away from the upper jaw, and you could give yourself a nice yawn or a pretend yawn. And then as you come back, you're just letting that lower jaw and that upper jaw find a relaxed place. So the lower jaw hangs off the upper jaw. And the lips are slightly apart. And the teeth are slightly apart. And the tongue moves away from the roof of the mouth. Go right to the back of the tongue. And make sure the root of the tongue is relaxed. Root of the tongue to the tip of the tongue. Rolls. Shoulders down to the floor. Release the knees. So the knees soften, the thighs soften, and the feet roll away from the center. Breathing in and out through the nose. And feeling the breath come in and out of the body. If you have managed to have a foam pad onto the ribs, as you breathe in, feel the sensation of that slight lift. Nothing like what's happening on the front of the body, but still movement on the back of the body. And you can feel the spine lift into the body. And then as you breathe out, a parallel release so that each side of the spine releases, the muscles release out to the side, away from the spine. Let that happen. Eyes soft, eyelashes just coming together.